NBA Finals have been interesting to say the least. The Boston Celtics have been the best team in the NBA all year, yet picks and money were more split than you would think going up against the 5th-seeded Dallas Mavericks. We now found ourselves with the Boston Celtics up 3-0 on the Dallas Mavericks, and there has been some pretty clear takeaways and narratives that have to be addressed before we potentially put a bow on this NBA season. Quick note, if you're watching this and you are new around here, I assume you like basketball, and I do too. So that pretty much makes us friends already. So why not help your friend out and subscribe to this channel, as we're shooting for 200 subscribers and you'd help a ton. So can we take care of that? Now, let's get into the NBA Finals and what they have showed us so far. First up, I want to discuss Luka Doncic being a two-edged sword. While on one hand, Luka Doncic has been almost the best player in this series for a lot of people's eyes. He is carrying their offense, being their leading scorer, and has been their most dependent on playmaker as well for the Mavs all year and in this NBA Finals. In this series, he's been tasked with getting his numbers and almost single-handedly enables Lively and Gafford, as well as the shooters on their team as well. For this series, Luka Doncic is averaging around 30 points, 9 rebounds, and 6 assists, which at the surface is good numbers, and he's been playing pretty well on the offensive end. However, to me, when you look deeper at these numbers, while Luka has definitely carried his weight on offense, and it's a lot of weight to be carried, he has been one of the main problems and issues as to why this team is down 3-0. When you look at his shooting splits, Luka is only shooting 32% from the 3, and he went 1 for 7 last night from the 3-point line. He went 4 of 9 in Game 2, and he went 4 of 12 in Game 1. Luka Doncic is also shooting 58% from the free throw line, and he shot 79% in the regular season. This is one of the things that he blamed on himself for the Game 2 loss. The other thing that he used as a blame on himself in the Game 2 loss was his turnovers, as he had 8 turnovers in Game 2, and he's averaging 5 turnovers over the course of the series in comparison to his 6 assists, which as we know is a bad assist to turnover ratio. But this isn't the biggest gripe with his game to me. It isn't on the offensive end, as no one is perfect against a special defensive team and a better team than them. However, his defense and whining to the officials has honestly been unbearable and a bit surprising at how bad it is. Unless you're living under a rock, you know that the Boston Celtics' whole game plan has been to attack Luka Doncic as the POA defender, as a help defender, as a screen defender, or just in general. They often run whoever offense on Luka Doncic during spurts of the game. It doesn't mean that Luka Doncic is getting scored on, which is why his defensive stats and metrics may look like people aren't scoring on him and he's holding his weight, but trust me, he is not. But because he cannot stay in front of literally anyone with any sort of ball handle, that gets the defensive rotation, and they often give up open cuts, comfortable shots for the Boston Celtics, and open threes as well. Luka often has a problem where he doesn't help to rotate behind someone who first rotated for him getting beat in the first place as well, so that is also troubling. We have seen him fall asleep off the ball, we've seen him fall asleep on the ball, we've seen him play cone-like defense on numerous occasions, and so much more. What compounds this is his consistent whining. Legitimately, I watched the game last night and I think Luka complained almost every time down the court, and some of them were costly. He complained one time that flopped on a 3 to try to get a call and gave up a 3 to Sam Hauser when the momentum was shifting. He did it again very shortly after this play and gave up a dunk to Jayson Tatum instead of getting back when he was the one who shot the ball. He also gave up an open dunk to Tatum with just terrible body language and hustle. And this is the NBA Finals. You cannot do these type of things in a game where you were down by 2 points in the fourth quarter. If you just save some of these points, maybe you're up. The momentum feels different. The crowd feels different. And every possession in the NBA Finals just matters. And he's not treating it like that. We have always heard that Luka Doncic is a whiner, but it is actually ridiculous and costing the team in real time now. Not to even mention, he's been foul baiting too much for trying to score the ball. Too much of this series has been Luka just kind of looking pretty with his stats and step backs. He has given off childlike vibes, and it's honestly hard for me to call him the best player in this series when a key part of the Celtics game plan is built upon him having no defense. He whines and costs his team, and he hasn't been otherworldly on offense as well. And yes, I know Luka Doncic is dealing with some injuries. However, plenty of people have crowned Luka the best player in this series, the best player in the world, and picked the Mavs to win the championship, and this was with him having some or most of these pre-existing injuries already present. His injuries do not serve as an excuse for some of his play and not giving any effort on some of these plays that are absolutely back-breaking. Secondly, let's talk about the Mavs others who have been pretty bad. First, let's talk about Derrick Jones Jr. Derrick Jones Jr. is one of the others, and he's been supremely bad. If it's not a layup, he doesn't feel comfortable taking any shots right now, and he shouldn't. He hasn't been effective anywhere outside of right there at the basket. He's averaging 6 points on 40% from the field. He's made only one three-pointer this series, and he's not making much of a difference at all on the defensive end as well, and he was seen as one of the guys that are supposed to be put on Tatum or Brown and try to maybe stop them a little bit. As a starter in the NBA Finals, this is piss poor honestly, and he's sort of been phased out of this series. Next, let's tackle the bigs. In terms of the bigs for the Mavs, they are dependent upon every other player on this roster to get looks for the most part. Lively and Gafford were feeding off of Luka and Kyrie with second chance points and mainly off of lobs and drop-off passes. Boston's defensive game plan has taken that virtually all away, so the bigs have just been flatlining this whole series. Daniel Gafford is averaging just 9 points and 5 rebounds, but only played 14 minutes in Game 1 and 16 minutes in Game 2. In both of these games, he only grabbed 3 rebounds, which is way down from his usual outputs. As for the rookie Derrick Lively, he's averaging 5 points and 8 rebounds, but these numbers are boosted by his best game in Game 3, which he had 11 points and 13 rebounds. In Games 1 and 2, he had 4 points combined and 12 rebounds combined, and he played less than 10 minutes than he did in Game 3. As for the co-star of this team, Kyrie Irving, he had his best game in Game 3 and was their best player in this game, so hats off to him for coming back when his back was against the wall after those 2 horrid games in Boston. His back was against the wall because he was averaging around 14 points on below 40% shooting, and he wasn't really effective on any end of the court. He's failed to consistently take advantage of matchups with guys like Al Horford, Peyton Pritchard, and Sam Hauser as well. It would be a far cry to expect someone like Kyrie to score on guys like Jayson Tatum, JB, Derrick White, and Jrue Holiday consistently all series and just average 35 points on 62% true shooting. But he hasn't been getting the best looks, and he hasn't been taking advantages of some matchups that you think that he maybe would more times than not. Those 2 no-shows in Boston may have costed him and his team the series before they even knew it. Even with his Game 3 performance, the series hasn't been great for Kyrie at all. As for the bottom of the rotation, all of these guys have been below average. Tim Hardaway Jr. hasn't scored in ages, and he's been a big negative on the floor. Dante Exum has hit like 1 shot and had a solid dunk, but nothing that is really impactful in his short minutes. As for Jaden Hardy, he's hardly seen the floor and has not been promising when he was out there. And for Maxi Kleber, he has been pretty bad as well, as he isn't really bringing any value to the lineups when he's on the floor, as he's not hitting threes and he's not really being a valuable switchable option right now, which in theory would be his only real usefulness in this series. These guys were never going to pop off and go for 20 points or anything like that, but they're losing the bench mob battle to the Boston Celtics, being outperformed by guys like Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser, and Xavier Tillman, who are hitting shots, getting stops, and bringing more energy than them. For our last and final takeaway, let's talk about how the Celtics are and have been a historically great team all year. And first up, I want to tackle the backcourt. The backcourt of the Boston Celtics has been absolutely amazing all year, and they have been pivotal in the NBA Finals. I love the quote that I was watching from Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce on their podcast when they said, the Boston Celtics backcourt just never stopped playing basketball. Meaning if they're not touching the ball or shooting it, they're going for rebounds. They're always going for steals. They're always going for blocks, offensive rebounds, and anything in between. They've done an excellent job making it tough on Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, and have been almost impenetrable to any other Dallas Maverick who is trying to get an advantage on them. They've hit big shots and have had big time moments in this series as well, such as the block from Derrick White that all but sealed Game 2, as well as Jrue Holiday's entire Game 2, which he was the best player on the floor in that game. And most recently, in a very important shot that Jrue made a pass to his fellow backcourt mate, that was a big shot that put the Celtics up more than they needed to be. We never talk about it, but this is maybe a top 3 backcourt in the entire league due to their all-NBA defense, ability to score, and the intangibles that they bring to the table. And lastly, let's talk about the 2 best and most important players on this team, and that is the Jays of the Boston Celtics. Jays have been extremely good in this series on both ends of the floor. Although their numbers may not jump off the page, they've been the 2 best players on this team for this series and in the playoffs. First up, let's talk about Jayson Tatum. Through games 1 through 3, he hasn't shot the ball well, but Game 3 was his best. Even with a better shooting percentage from Game 3, his shooting splits are still below 40% from the field, which is obviously terrible for a superstar at his caliber. However, Tatum has shown us all how to have an impact on the game without shooting the ball particularly well. Jayson Tatum has been the main cog in dismantling the Dallas Mavericks lobs, as he's been guarding the centers for the Mavericks, which just results in a switch of Tatum onto Luka. This was one of the Mavs' go-to offensive moves for the entire playoffs, so nullifying this is absolutely huge, and much props to JT and the coaching staff. Jayson Tatum has also had the best playmaking series of his career, averaging around 8 assists and constantly getting past defenders and making plays for others. Even the ones that do not result in points or assists directly from Tatum, Tatum has been putting constant pressure on the Mavs and getting that action started by beating his man and getting quality shots for the offense. Tatum has also been a beast on the boards, grabbing 10 and around 10 rebounds every game and finishing and closing out defensive possessions with a rebound. As for Jaylen Brown, he has played equal to, or some would say better than, Jayson Tatum. Brown has been a menace with his on-ball defense on Kyrie Irving as well as on Luka as well. I'm sure a lot of you remember some of his pickpockets in Game 1, and he was having some success against Luka in Game 3 as well. On the offensive end, he's come through with non-stop aggression at the rim, and he's upped his own playmaking, getting some assists of his own. And he's made some perimeter shots as well, with one of them being, which is right now the shot of the series, as the Mavericks were definitely creeping up and JB hit a nice shot to kind of keep them at the distance. We may not know who is going to get Finals MVP right now because Jaylen Brown has been playing awesome and Jayson Tatum has been playing awesome in his own right as well. But that will be a close vote, as if Tatum has a good game 4 and they close it out, then they could go his way as he has the more all-around stats and has still been a cog in the defense. Jaylen Brown seems to kind of have the public on his side. He's hit a couple big shots in this series and he has just been playing well all year and all playoffs anyway, coming off the Eastern Conference Finals MVP. So the MVP is kind of up for grabs, but any way it goes, both of these guys are very deserving. All in all, we maybe should have picked this series to go a little bit shorter, and maybe a lot of people have been ignoring just how good the Boston Celtics have been all year. I know that they had an easier path here, but that doesn't mean that you should take credit away from them, and maybe that's just a video for another time. But these NBA Finals are more so over. I could see Dallas winning Game 4 just to not get swept and win a home game, but they cannot beat this team. It is a bad matchup, and they do not have the pieces that they need to beat this team at this time. So early on, just congratulations to the Boston Celtics, and I will see you guys very, very soon. If you made it here and you are still listening to my voice on this video, I appreciate you, and I will be back.